Okay. Okay, we'll call the City of Olivet Planning Community Design Commission for August 19th to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Rob Jurgel, present. Carol Wagner.
Present.
Jody Rich here. Richard Brophy. Absent. Brian Lewis.
Present.
Jim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Let it also be known that City Council Liaison Missy Waldman is in attendance, as well as Carlos Trejo, the Olivet Director of Planning and Community Development, Dawn Doty, Olivet Senior Planner, and I believe Bridget Waters is also online. Is that correct, Carlos? The Administrative Assistant? Okay, good. Good. Okay, thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Sorry for the delay in starting, but we had to take care of a few little technical difficulties. I just wanted to give everybody a review of the procedures. We will have a time for public comments. We do ask that you that these public comments be not related to anything on the agenda item. If there is something that's that you have a public comment that's related to the agenda item, we do ask you wait until we ask for those comments specific to that agenda item. We do want to remind everybody that the time is limited to 3 minutes per person, just to respect everybody's times and to make sure everybody's voice can be heard. If you do have a public comment, either public or related to the agenda item, we do ask that you raise your hand. It's kind of a little icon or at the bottom, just so we can make sure we pick that up. You can also feel free to leave text message comments down below as well, and we could bring those up as well if you prefer that. When you do, when we do ask for the public comments and you're brought on, we do ask that you put your video on and then state your name and address for the record. Carlos, am I missing anything? Okay. So when we go through the agenda items, there'll be a staff report that will go through things. Then we'll have questions and comments among the commission members to discuss. And then we'll typically bring on the petitioner, have some more discussion. And that time we'll have a chance for public comments related to each agenda item. All right. Carlos, can you check to see if there's any public comments at this time? And as a reminder, these are for items that are not on the agenda at this time.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but the raise your hand button is at the middle, you'll find it at the middle of your screen, bottom middle.
We'll give a little bit of time.
And Chairman, seeing none, I recommend that we be prepared to go to the first agenda item.
Okay, good, good. We'll move on to item number 4, old business. And this is item A, which is 11 Forsythia Lane. Petition type is community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single family home. The petitioner is Jeff Day of Jeff Day and Associates. The property owner is Mr. Politnik.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Carol,
I need to recuse myself on this item.
that'd be great. That'd be fun. Let's turn off the mic. Okay. Carlos, let's give a little bit of time for
Yes, please.
Carol, because I believe she wants to go to the back. All right, Carlos, will you please go through the report?
Sure, Chairman. So this is the third time that this home has been before the commission for review. The primary issue has been the overall building setback. While the building setback complies with code, we have expressed some concern to the commission regarding the continuity of the streetscape and its reflection of the neighborhood. Overall, I believe the consensus from the commission has been that the other design principles have been fully met. That includes the mass, the roofing, the garage, the elevation articulation materials and such. But the primary concern has been the building setback. The initial building setback that was presented before the commission had the building approximately 125 feet from the road right away. Here's number 11. Forsythia, it's kind of centered along the street, and it's also the deepest lot along the street side. After concern from the commission, a revised petition was submitted that reduced the 125-foot setback to approximately 80 feet. And that was brought into commission, but there were still some concerns being expressed. So the petitioner has resubmitted a change and has reduced the building setback to about 60 feet. And that's what you will see reflected here. So here we're going to impose the revised petition plans with the 60-foot setback into the lot area number 11. I've kind of grayed out the building footprint in there, so it is approximate. It's not, and it's pretty close to scale. What we've also done is identify the building setbacks for the adjacent properties, starting at the far west at number 7 Forsythia. It's approximately about 45 feet from the road right away, all the way to the east of Forsythia, number 19, which is roughly about around 48.6 feet from the roadway. At this point, it is staff's recommendation that the overall setback, while it's still about 10 to 15 feet more than the adjacent properties, it's well in line, and that is something that we would have just brought to the commission's attention for its review and consent. It is a community design, it's not a site plan issue. And the commission still has the authority and the right to look at the lot as a whole. I think this is more in line and maintains the overall street yard setback as opposed to the previous two. Now, again, it is still the deepest lot with the furthest setback, but I think it's more palatable with the existing streetscape and the neighborhood in there. So staff, our concerns have been addressed on this. Now, there is some history. The petitioner did meet with representatives of the subdivision, and they've had discussions on this. And I think there was some mixed feelings, but overall, the consensus that was provided to me was that this was more reasonable and workable. I know the petitioners talked to the adjacent property owner to the east. And there, I'm not sure if he's reached out to the property owner to the west, but the petitioner is online along with their representative. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions. As we've gone through this petition, the outstanding issues have been the overall front yard setback, but I still want to reiterate some of the concerns that were expressed in the original staff report regarding that plan. And one of them will be the driveway. There has to be a 5-foot setback for the driveway along the western property line. There should be no issue of trying to maintain or meet that. And we want to make sure that the slope of the driveway is specific enough. There are, because of the changes in the placement of the building, there are some trees that would be removed. We would like to see a landscape plan to see how they would be replaced. And I think that's all we have, Chairman. If there are any questions, please let me know on that, and be glad to answer any.
Any questions for the members of the commission?
You had retaining wall on that list.
Correct. We haven't seen the final finishes for that
Okay.
reflected. Thank you for catching that, sir.
There's one hand raised.
All right, and we'll get to those.
Brian, since you're not here, did you have any questions for Carlos?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, Carlos, I don't think there's any other questions. I think it'd probably be good to bring the petitioner on so he can kind of maybe recap their discussions and kind of go through the proposed changes.
All right. Mr. Palatnik, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And then I do know Mr. Day is also in attendance. I would assume, Mr. Day, you're representing Mr. Palatnik too. If there's anybody else that I should be bringing over that part of the petition applicants team, please let me know.
Thank you. Good evening. I don't have much I don't have any questions. I did meet with community members and we discussed the depth of the house. I spoke with the community trustee, John, who lives across the street. And he was very happy with the fact that I kept coming towards and bringing the house closer and closer. I did have some community members who still were not happy with the 60 feet, but I feel like at this point I tried my best, and I understand that I can't always make everyone happy, but in order for me to maintain the look that I would like for my house, I want to have a big enough front yard in such a deep lot. So this is why I don't want to bring it any closer than that.
Were you able to make contact with both sets of neighbors or just only only one?
On the east and the west, yes, I spoke with both of them. The neighbor on the west side had no issues. The neighbor on the east side did still raise some concerns, I think. But basically what I said is, you know, I brought it closer twice, and I understand that from his house, if he's standing in his back door and looking towards the west, part of my house will block his western view. But such as if I would build a ranch house or anyone else would build a bigger house, this is not a very large house compared to some of the newer houses being built on the street. It could extend even further if it was closer to the street. So again, I really tried my best. Originally, I wanted it in the middle of the lot because I didn't want to take down any trees, and it's a beautiful backyard. But I did understand their concerns. They wanted to make sure that the center of the street stays like a park, looking like a park. So I understand that. I also, by moving it closer because of the elevation, I lost the ability to have a walkout basement with window bedrooms there. So in a way, my original plans of the value and the size of the living space in the house got decreased. But I prefer to do that than having angry neighbors.
How much more did the other neighbors want it moved up?
No one gave me a specific number.
Did they give a specific idea at all, or, you know?
I mean, there is another house on the street that's 48 feet setback on the same street. And I did hear from people that, from two people, that they would be okay if it was at that depth. I explained to them that I would prefer not to, also because if I would move it closer, if you can see how the driveway is goes around the tree on the west corner of the lot, I won't be able to do it if I bring it any closer. So that tree would have to come down as well, which is a very big mature tree. And I did point out that on the same neighborhood, the next street over, there are 4 houses that are set about 60 feet from the street. So I'm not the first tenant in the neighborhood who places his house at this depth.
Is there any commission members that have any questions? they want to address specifically to the petitioner?
So to understand you, your real concern is that you want a bigger front yard, is that correct?
Correct. Not bigger than what we see right now. What we see, I have no concern with where the house is placed right now. This is where I would be okay with. I preferred it to be deeper in, but I addressed the neighbor's concerns and brought it closer.
But the reason why you don't want to bring it closer to the street is because you want a closer front yard, is that correct?
Correct. I would like my front yard to stay large enough for nice landscaping, and I also don't want to take down another mature tree on the lot.
Where is that mature tree?
It is on the southwest corner.
Oh,
So if you look where the driveway ends with the street, where the driveway meets the street,
yeah, I see it. Okay.
yeah, on the bottom, you can see that.
Yeah, and I see it on the sheet C2, which shows it in relation to your driveway.
Carlos, is the 60 feet, that is the front facing, or that's the depth total for the house? I'm sorry, Carlos, I can't hear you.
Sorry, Mr. Lewis. The 60 feet is the measurement from the front face of the garage to the street right away. And that's where we generally measure the building setback. So you'll see in this graph here, bear with me 1 second. In this slide, we measured one from some plat data that we have on file due to various building permits that have been issued, and then took estimates off the St. Louis County parcel data system of what those distances are, and those distances are reflected in that table on the bottom portion.
Well, I'm not sure. Brian, did you have any more questions?
No, I'm curious to hear from the neighbors because I assume there's a bunch of people on too, but no, I'm good from questions.
Yeah, I think let's see how they all feel about it, as well. Carlos?
All right.
Maybe we'll start bringing up
Right.
neighbors as well.
So if there's anybody that would like to speak in regards to this petition application, again, if at the lower portion of your monitor, there should be a raise hand, identify or click that, and now let me know that you would like to speak to the commission. In doing so, I'll transfer you over as a panelist, and if you can, please state your name and address, and we would be very appreciative if you could also have your video on. All right, so the first person I'm going to transfer, right now, all it says is it's a Samsung SMG95. I'm going to promote you to panelist. Again, if you can identify yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Carol Wagoner. I'm at number 7 Forsythia. And so the back of my house would be looking at his house, the petitioner's house. And I am right now I look at green space, not a house. I would certainly much prefer I prefer this proposed site plan as opposed to the last one, but I do not understand that how or if the petitioner met the commission's request to meet. I did not receive any notification to meet. I was not asked to meet. I did not attend a meeting with him. I've heard that several of the neighbors were not there. I know that I would have liked to have been there to hear what he had to say. And I don't know why he didn't contact some of us to be there. As far as I know, the adjacent neighbors were not there. I talked to one just a couple days ago, said he knew nothing about it and was not in attendance at that meeting. So I just don't know who he has actually spoken with. It was not me. And I certainly, well, I think, yes, he's moved his house up a little bit, which is up considerably, which I think is great. I really don't understand why he can't move it up so it's at least an approximate line with everybody else, and he's not standing out like a sore thumb in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Carlos, is there any others?
Yes, sir. Okay, I have another, the name that's shown is Jean. I'm going to promote you to panelist. And Jean, if you can identify yourself, full name, please, and your address. And then again, we'd appreciate if you have the video capability to have that on.
All right, talk. All right, well, I would like to see the house brought up to the old original.
Sir,
footprint on the
sir,
old-
sorry. Could you please state your name and address for the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry. Gene Havelka. I live at number 9. I've been here 53 plus years. And I would personally like to see the house brought back up to the original house that was there because you could still have a walkout basement. And I think it would look more in line with the other houses. And that's my own personal thought on it.
Jean,
thank
do you live next door to this property?
I do, number 9.
Did you speak with the applicant about
I
that?
only met him one time, and that's when he first was buying the house. And that's the only time I ever spoke to the gentleman.
So you didn't meet with him and discuss?
I did not. Did
Okay.
not.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any more questions?
No, is there any more comments or is that it?
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure before
No,
switching.
no more comments. Sorry about that.
I'm going to promote Greg Smith. Mr. Smith, I'm promoting you to a panelist. And again, if you can state your full name and address, and if possible, if your video works, we greatly appreciate it.
Hopefully you can see me. I am Greg Smith. I'm at 15 Forsythia. The house to the east of the lot that we're discussing, 11 Forsythia. I did have a chance to meet with the petitioner. I'd sent a message to, I guess, to Carlos. This is probably well over a month ago, and it got communicated to the petitioner. We did meet at the lot. I'm guessing it was probably a month ago at this point in time. My discussion was that I would hope that we could be able to bring the house forward. This is when it was at 80, I guess 80 feet, to bring the house forward to get it in line with the other houses. And until tonight, I did not know what the depth of the other houses are. So I'm glad that the commission has gone through and done that. So given the range from 40.9 to 48.6, and this is sitting at 60 feet, we're still well above this line of houses. So I guess it was my hope that we'd be able to put this house at 11 Forsythia somewhere in that range. But we're still well above that range at this point in time. Similar to other folks, I think it's still setting back too far. I understand the concern about moving it forward because there's probably one more tree that would come down because of that, because of the driveway, I'm guessing being too short to allow the curved driveway, and that tree is probably just going to be in the way. But ultimately, my goal was to hopefully get this more in line with the other houses in the neighborhood, up to that whatever the largest one is, and at the 48.6 feet or something around that, maybe 50 feet, but hoping that it wouldn't set as far back as even what it is at this point in time then. Thank you.
Thank you. No question.
For Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir.
Again, if there's anybody else that would like to speak in regards to this petition, if you can click the hand button at the lower portion of your screen, and I'll transfer you over.
Carlos, do you know who the trustee of the neighborhood is? And if that person who met with Mr. Paletnik, if he's potentially online?
Okay, and I do have another hand. Can we?
Yeah, that'd be great.
David Colhagen, I'm going to promote you to panelist. Mr. Colhagen, if you can identify yourself by full name and include your address. And then also if you have the video capability, we greatly appreciate it if it was turned on.
Mute. Is that, am I coming across now?
Yes, we can hear your full video, audio.
But not getting the video. Okay, I've done this before, but I don't really see where to click the video. Oh, there it is, start video. It finally showed up. Okay, there we go. Yes, my name is David Colhagen. I live at number 27 Forsythia Lane, which is right around the corner here. And I'm, well, I'm basically on in support of the people who are feeling not completely satisfied with this outcome. And kind of the reason is I'm frustrated and disappointed that I do not believe Mr. Paletnik made the effort to contact the neighborhood. This John trustee he's talking about, we don't have a trustee named John, but we got a Tom across the street. And I understand he was, Mr. Paletnik was instructed by the Planning and Community Design Commission to contact the trustees and meet with the subdivision. And to my knowledge, that never happened. I was in very close contact with all the trustees and several of the neighbors. And so I'm really disappointed because we had plenty of time to go out into this property with a long tape and really see where the footprint of this house was and really get some idea of where the trees are and how to discuss this. And I don't believe Mr. Paletnik made the effort to interact with the neighbors in any meaningful way. And that's my disappointment and frustration. I understand his position. And what I'm looking at here is I'm basically in support of the people who are saying, well, this isn't completely satisfactory because you're looking at a car lengths of greater setback than any of the other houses. And given how deep this house is, it really pushes it back into that backyard into everybody's view. So I kind of want to just support Mr. Smith and Mr. Havelka in what they said because it's important to them and also Ms. Wagoner. because it's going to affect them more than it's going to affect me way over here. And so I just want to kind of say that we're really sorry that the owner didn't make the effort to really speak with us and have us go out and really see what the effect is and see where the trees are and the footprint of the house. And so we're all kind of just estimating at this point. And I don't think it had to be that way. And I believe that, you know, Mr. Palatnik was told to meet with the neighbors and discuss it, and that just never happened. So we're working with incomplete information here. And I guess that's really all that I have to say, right?
Who is, excuse me, sir? What's the
Yes.
name of the main trustee or head trustee?
Well, there's no main trustee. There's 3 trustees in Morrison View subdivision number 1. They each have a different function, and they're equals. There's a streets trustee, there's a treasurer, and there's a secretary trustee.
Okay.
So, you know, across the street, maybe Mr. Palatnik was referring to Tom McKenzie, who is one of our trustees. But Jessica, I don't know her last name, Kozniak or whatever, she's right around the corner here. And Brian, I don't know where he lives, is I think our treasurer. And none of those people, to my knowledge, was contacted by the homeowner in the interest of setting up a meeting of the subdivision. We have had emergency meetings set up in the past, and many of us would have very much appreciated the opportunity to attend and get a real good visual of what's going on this property, but we just didn't get the opportunity. And what happens is an emergency meeting is called, and everybody who can show up would show up, and that never happened. We were never, the trustees were never notified or contacted, and they never had the opportunity to set up a meeting. And so,
Sure, if you don't mind, assuming it was Tom that he met with,
Sure.
what is Tom's role on the trustees?
Streets.
Street, okay. I just wanted to.
Honestly, I don't know. He's a treasurer or secretary, because Brian is the treasurer, and Jessica, I guess, is the streets trustee. So that would be Tom McKenzie. And he would have noted, and I don't know if he was contacted at all. I mean, John was the name I heard. If Tom had been contacted, he knew that myself, Jessica, Brian, a number of other people were standing by, kind of contacting him weekly to say, have you heard anything? And getting back a negative from him. So we don't know that any of the trustees were actually contacted, even though Carlos apparently gave Mr. Palatnik the contact information for the trustees. So that was just my big disappointment, was we really didn't get a hands-on visit to the property to get a real solid sense of what's going on.
Thank you for
That's just
that.
disappointing. So thank you.
Carlos, are there any more?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Have both Brian K. I'm going to promote you to panelist. And Brian, if you can state your full name and address. And then if you have video capability, it would be greatly appreciated.
There we go. Hello, my name is Brian Calling. I am the streets trustee of Morrison View subdivision number 1. I did have a chance to meet with Mr. Palatnik. I was there with Greg Smith. We did talk about the 40-foot setback. I also encouraged him to reach out to Tom McKenzie, who kind of he's been the longest running trustee. So he does tend to kind of organize the meetings. I encourage him to reach out to him as well to organize a larger meeting of the entire subdivision. So we could talk about this. To my knowledge, that did not happen. I'm trying to think if there's anything else relevant. The meeting that we did have, Mr. Palatnik did send me an email about a week and a half, 2 weeks before, hoping to set something up. I encouraged him again to contact the entire street and make sure that everybody was aware of that. He set it up for very early Sunday morning. I think it was about 10:30. We had about a half-hour discussion or so where we did reiterate, the around the 40-foot line, kind of in line with the other houses, was preferable to the neighbors. That was the bulk of the comments that I've heard from both direct neighbors and some of the other surrounding people in the community.
Okay, Brian, just to clarify, because I was writing some things down before, you are a trustee, is that correct?
I'm a trustee. Typically my role is the streets. Jessica is typically the treasurer. And I think that makes Tom the secretary / president. I'm not quite sure. We do kind of operate as a function with everyone taking a little bit on, but I head up the streets. Jessica heads up the books.
Okay, and the person that met with you, he was the neighbor to the east, is that correct?
Yes, at 15 Forsythia.
Okay. So how were things left at the end of that meeting?
It was a very cordial meeting. I thought we had a good discussion. But Greg particularly was very clear that he had hoped for a house line closer to the street.
Okay, and whose responsibility was it to set up the other meeting with the other trustees, or?
I am unclear. I was not contacted about any other meeting from any of the other trustees. I did learn that there was a meeting to inspect the street and its condition, to document that before any build took place. Unfortunately, I was not invited to that meeting. I found out about it after the fact.
And who was that meeting with?
To my knowledge, that was Mr. Plotnick, Jessica, Director Trejo, and maybe the builder.
Okay, okay. But no other residents?
Not to my knowledge.
Carlos,
There was 2 representatives of Forsythia present at that.
did you talk about the setbacks and things like that?
No, the meeting was regarding, there's a street inspection. What if a permit for a new single-family home is approved? One of the conditions that we now require is a street inspection for private streets with the Director of Public Works. They were initiating the demolition, and there was some concerns expressed. So we met with I got a call from one of the trustees because there was equipment actually at the site for the demolition. So I met with them at that point. There was 2, I think 2 representatives there, along with Mr. Paleknik, and then the demolition contractor who were in attendance. And at that case, there was no violation in any way or form, but it provided an opportunity for them to kind of take a look at the streets. I think there was a collection in the street deposit that's part of the subdivision, has nothing to do with the city. The city doesn't collect deposits on behalf of trustees. We do have our own systems, to make clear. But at that point, there was some conversations with them. We did walk along the site. I had a measuring tape, so we did measure several parts of the property, so they had a better idea of the setbacks.
Regarding setbacks?
Yes. Mhm.
Oh, so you did have some.
Yes, we
discussions
did
of
have.
setbacks. Okay, and how did that go? Where did you show the setbacks that are currently shown on the screen?
Correct.
And what was the?
It was just more to get an idea of where those setbacks were. There was no discussion about whether that was more favorable or not. There was nothing stated that it wasn't. There was nothing stated that this is great either. So.
Okay. Okay, just trying to get an idea. Okay,
Hey, Chairman,
yes, sir.
I guess I am a little confused too, in that I thought that the petitioner had said he met with number 9, but the resident number 9 said he hadn't met. Did I read that correctly? Did I understand that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I understand. And I think once we get through all these other comments, I think that's a good point to just kind of bring up and find out.
Okay.
He said, number 9 said that he met with them earlier.
Yeah, but not after the initial thing, correct?
All right, Carlos, anyone else?
Yes. Okay, Brian, I'm going to bring you back as an attendee.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm going to promote Jessica K. And Jessica, if you can state your full name and address. And if you have video capability, that would be greatly appreciated.
Hello, my name is Jessica Kozan. I am number 2 on Carlos's image there. I am also a trustee. I'm one of the treasurers, or I am the treasurer for our block. And so I do want to echo, I have tried to encourage that we have the block meet and discuss because this has been a big sticking point for a number of us where we definitely, I mean, we just want to meet and discuss it. And it definitely has been something that the commission asked, and it's something that has not been fulfilled. And I have included Carlos in my emails on that, so Carlos does know I have been asking to share this out with the rest of the block, as well as share the meeting with them. And so I was there on the day we met on the street. We were given about a 45-minute notice to meet, to say that they were doing demo that next day, and to come take pictures of the curbs and collect what we needed to for the subdivision for the curb and the demo. And yes, we did look at how far it was set back. There were just a few of us there. It was not an invitation out, but of course it was, the purpose was curbs. And so we did look at where it was set back. And again, we didn't have an opinion either way. We still needed to see really where it was. We did meet with Greg at the end of that. And where we had looked, it was already past where his garage met. And he did express that it was set further back than he thought it was going to be.
Okay. Anything else to add?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, on the attendees, I don't have any. If there is anybody else that would like to speak before the commission, please raise your hand. It's located in the lower center part of your monitor. I do have Mr. Paletnik wanting to address the commission.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, so a few points. First of all, you heard from 2 trustees here out of 3 that I did meet with them on the lot. One of them was an appointment to discuss the depth of the house, and Jessica and then Tom McKenzie, which were both present when we met to discuss the curb, which I was asked to deposit $5,000 for any damage of it, which I did. When we met there, we did discuss the depth of the house. I did had a planned meeting with Tom McKenzie for that weekend to discuss it, but since we met 3 days earlier, he was fine to just talk about it then instead of meeting him again on the weekend. Tom McKenzie was the only one who gave me his personal thoughts about the depth of the house when we met, and he said that he was very happy with the depth and the fact that I went forward and changed the depth based on the neighbors' requests. I sent requests for every neighbor who was on the last meeting that we had here in Olivet. I sent them all invitations to meet. There were 5 of them, and I met with 3 of them. 3 of them met me there. This included Greg from 15 Forsythia. I think Jessica was the other one there on that meeting. And sorry, I don't remember who's the third one. It might have been Brian. Or the other trustee, but he doesn't live on the street as far as I recall. So that's as far as who I met with. I was asked by Jessica if I would like to meet with everyone from the neighborhood regarding this, and I personally preferred not to. I just didn't feel like everyone in the neighborhood. Um, I understand I can't make everyone happy. So everyone who came and raised his voice that he doesn't like it, I reached out to meet him there. The second thing I want to say is with the depth. So as you can see, the deepest house on the street is 48.6 feet, which is 11.4 feet less, less than my house. If I were to move my house 11 feet, number 7 is not going to get any better view. It would still look completely on my house. There are other, like I said earlier, there are other houses in the neighborhood, not on our street, that are deeper. And also in our street, not all the houses line up. A lot of the houses, if you scroll up in the street, don't line up at all. Some of them are set not even straight on their side. That's not a cookie cutter street. And I think that the neighbors are happy that it's not a cookie cutter street. And people build here their own custom homes. And I understand you can't always make everyone happy, but I think that twice I already went and moved the house much closer to the street than what I initially wanted. And each one of those times it's completely up to code. I am not doing anything, of course, that's against city code. So I didn't feel like I need to meet with anyone in the street to explain that I just want it there. The reason I don't have to come up with very specific reasons. It's just I understand it can't make everyone happy. That's all I have.
Would you be any willing, after hearing, you know, the tremendous amount of people indicating, you know, still some concerns, would you have any consideration to move it up to some amount?
I moved it up based on the meetings with them twice because of the meetings with them. But I got the same answer, and it's that it's not enough. The amount of people. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the first time it was placed, I mean, it was, you know, people from their, you know, back of their doors or coming out would see the front of your house. You know, you did move it up, you know, the second time, but it was still pretty far, you know, it was still, you know, considerably back. This is getting in line. I'm not sure how every other commission members feel, but it'd be my preference to bring it up a little bit more, you know, that would be my thought. So, I mean, I understand that you did move it up, and I think you did a significant amount, which is great, but it does, to me, still seem just a little bit too far back. I don't know how other commission members feel. Does everybody have strong opinions or not?
I would like to see it pushed up a little bit and please some of these neighbors.
Jody, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, it seems like the other houses are still older houses that are likely to be torn down at some point. And they may want to do something different as well.
Okay, Brian, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. I mean, while in a perfect world to make everyone happy, it'd be great to come up. I do feel like it's within code. There have been concessions made. I recognize it's not as ideal as everyone wants or in the neighborhood. But I also feel like there is a lot of land behind that house too. And, you know, it's not a house, but he could put something else in the backyard that people wouldn't want to look at. It's kind of the property. I do think there was some good concessions made. It may not make everyone happy. That's unfortunate. The thing that only bothers me more is the lack of clarity around who met with who and who didn't, and, you know, saying it reached out to everyone, but not everyone says they saw that. That's a little frustrating. But at the end of the day, if everyone has said they wish it was more and he doesn't want to move more. I don't know why, as a PCDC, we would stop that, if that makes sense. It definitely makes for animosity in the neighborhood, and that's unfortunate, but I also don't think it's an eyesore like this, so.
I definitely agree with you that there were some missed opportunities, with trying to meet and, but then again, I don't think it's Mr. Politnik's responsibility to address every individual person. If he made some efforts to reach out to several of the trustee members, I would have preferred if he, met again with the neighbor to the west. That would be, would have been my preference, but that's, we're here where we are right now, so. All right, Mr. Politnik.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any, would you be willing to move it up anymore, or you want to keep it right there and take a vote on it as is?
I would like to take a vote as is. If I move it more, I gotta get rid of, again, the tree at the driveway and make the driveway straight, which I prefer to keep it going around that tree.
Well, we have 4 members on the board and it's going to need 4 votes. So I guess it's going to come down to simple majority. And then what happens if it's a tie?
And that goes. Good question. Pardon?
It's not a majority. It's a non-decision. Maybe it should be deferred and come back for additional discussion. My understanding is when there's the risk of it being a tie, in the past there's been the request to let's defer and continue conversation, but the gentleman has his right to request the vote and see where it lands. I do have one question. I'm not here for the design, but I thought I heard something and I just want to make sure that is what I heard was correct. I heard the gentleman indicate that he has lost the ability to have his basement and a sliding door and access from either the lower level as a result of shifting this house up an additional 20 feet. I don't know if I understood that right, but my question would be, if he shifted it up just a little bit more, would he be able to have that ability to have his basement or whatever it was that he said he had to give up and not have the sliding door access for his family and his children? Now, I'm just asking, I am not the professional here, but I thought I heard that from him and I'm like, well, would moving it up a little bit give him that he has lost the opportunity to build because of having to shift it up 20 feet?
I don't think that's the case. I think it's, it's because of the ground, existing ground elevation. When you move it forward, it rises. But Mr. Politnik, can you confirm that?
Yes, so, sorry, it's not the last 20 foot that changed it. It's the original plan of the house where it was in the middle of the lot. That's the lot is flat. It's completely flat. The only area where the lot does dip just for a very short amount of time is in the middle of the lot, where I was able to get a walkout basement and bedroom windows in the basement, which was another reason why I wanted it there originally. By moving it to 80 feet, I already lost that ability, which stayed the same moving it to 60 and would stay the same no matter how much closer I would move it.
Chairman, regarding your question on the motion, if the motion doesn't have a majority, it fails.
Okay.
So that is the result. That would be the outcome. And just for clarification too, this rendering here represents the original placement.
Yes.
So this walkout still is represented in the revised plans. So the walkout is not eliminated.
It's not.
To the best of my knowledge, there was no walkout on the rear part.
Yeah, Carlos, this is Jeff speaking. we don't want to go through all the motions of revising all of this and keep having it denied. There's thousands and thousands of dollars leaving Noah's bank account for that. So all we've submitted to you, and I believe you already knew this, is civil engineering drawings showing how it could be regraded.
Correct. And those show the walkout.
But that's not gonna happen.
In my discussion this afternoon with the civil, because I needed to clarify those numbers, there's still a walkout.
Oh, he's saying it can work?
Again, in my discussion with the civil this afternoon, he's showing those contours right in the front.
I know the answer to this. So if you look at the original drawing, you see a walkout and about 4 windows there. By moving it forward, we're digging into the ground with steps going up in order to have only the door to get out of the basement. So I'm still making a door to get out of the basement where it's at right now, because it's not in the middle of the lot where I was able to actually be on ground level. So I lost all the windows, but I still wanted an option to get out of the basement. So I'm not sure what it's called, but they dig in and there are steps to go up.
It's a forced walkout if that's what's
Yeah,
going to happen at all. It's a forced walkout.
and no bedrooms, because but that doesn't change from the 80 or 60 or 40. That only changes from the 150 in the middle of the lot to anywhere closer.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I'd like to make one more statement.
Mr. Day, if you can identify yourself and your position in the petition.
Sure. Again, my name is Jeff Day. I'm the architect that designed the home. We strive in all of these communities to try to save as many trees as we can. I would anticipate that if anyone who spoke tonight and anyone sitting on the board drove through a McKelvey development or a McBride development, they're going to see 0 mature trees. That's because these guys buy these pieces of property and level all the mature trees. And so the streetscape, though having the front of the homes relate to one another in adjacency at some level, certainly makes sense. I think tearing down all of these mature trees gives you a streetscape that feels like these slapped together developments that you find out in O'Fallon and St. Charles and further out into Wentzville and Warrenton. And I don't think that is really what Olivet wants. And so I understand certainly the frustration about the communication and trying to get everybody on the same page. I personally feel like my client has made great strides from where he and candidly I originally wanted the home, with efforts to save as many trees as possible. The delta from the front of the home there to the left, if you will, in this image, to the front of the garage is not that great. And we're already losing the one tree. This placement allows us to keep the mature tree that's left so that this doesn't feel like a tract home development. I think we all know it takes a great deal of time for a tree to grow, to a substantial size. And this is an opportunity to, for lack of a better phrase, save a tree, but also save a streetscape that has mature trees and let this house feel as though it either hasn't impacted the community streetscape or at minimum, it may feel as though it's been there longer because we've left the mature trees. And my team strives to do that really on any property we can. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the board members? Any other questions or comments from the public? And then I'm just going to ask Brian if you had any other questions or comments, just since I can't see you were.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Chairman, can I provide some comments on that before the motion is made, maybe
Yeah,
some
that'd
type
be
of
great.
compromise? When we receive an application for community design review, that reflects that the petition that's submitted is in full compliance with the city's zoning regulations. The city is solely responsible for the enforcement of zoning regulations, and we have a guidelines book, of course, but those are just guidelines. And we kind of use that to assist and establish the community aesthetic standards in there. And they're minimal. Some subdivisions go into great detail, but they're responsible for the enforcement of that detail. All of that's, again, given that we have to apply this to the community as a whole. We can't be selective to one subdivision and apply one set of standards and then apply a different set of standards to another subdivision. But there's also enough in that document to give the commission some guidance to take a look at some broader pictures like this setback. And the initial setback of 120 feet was significant. When you reduce that 120 feet or 125 feet to 80 feet, and then you go down to 60 feet, and numerically, it looks like there's been great strides. But again, it started off at one extreme. Bear with me 1 second. So now we're at this point, and it seems like there is still some concerns, not only from the subdivision representatives, but some residents within the subdivision. But that setback, the proposed setback, neither of the three are against code, which is our responsibility from the city to ensure that is met. But that being said, the commission has to act within 60 days from the receipt of an application. This application came in on July 1st. It was presented before the commission July 1st. And again, we started off on this other extreme, so it's taken a while to get to this point. But the commission has to act before the end of this month, and this is the last meeting of the month. What happens after that? Well, the commission can approve the petition as submitted, which of course it sounds like some residents may not find favor in that. They have an authority to petition or appeal the commission's decision to the city council. The commission could deny this application based on the findings and the comments of the subdivision. I cautioned them on that because again, you're kind of, you got to be careful on how you balance that it's not only in this subdivision that we would have that standard in place. This would be applicable to others unless the code is ever changed. And then the applicant would have the ability to appeal the commission's decision to the city council. That being said, I understand, I know the petitioners moved this building, has shown effort to move the building forward. And I think, and I do appreciate that. But again, we started at 125 feet. Now we're 60 feet from the road right away. That's still usually 20 feet more than the traditional 40. It's well above. None of these houses are actually at the setback that was established by the subdivision. They're all further back. And that's a product of some old zoning that we used to have in place. But that being said, I would recommend the commission to have a discussion of approving the petition with an amendment that the house be moved 5 feet closer. If it can't be done, the petitioner can then appeal that to the council in there. If it can be done, that's great. If anybody in the subdivision is still in opposition, they can appeal that to the council. Again, it's not a perfect world. It's not a win-win, but that 5 feet probably makes a bigger difference in there. And we hope, I'm sensitive to the tree issue just as much, but this house is probably going to last longer than that tree.
And if I could add, I believe, Mr. Trejo, if it comes to council, council has to give super majority, not just majority.
And I think that's a reasonable compromise. And again, I know the petitioner has made a big effort from 125 to 60, but we were really starting at a far extreme too.
Right, right.
Carlos, can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
In the city guidelines, when you are building a new house, we have those city guidelines. Is there anything about the front setback in there?
There are two things. Well, first, in the zoning code, an established minimum. We won't let somebody get closer to a street than an established minimum. And in this case, this subdivision, I believe, is 25 feet. Nobody in that subdivision along this street segment is 25 feet, within 25 feet. Most of those that are reflected here are well over 40. There is no code requirement in a residential condition that says you can't be as far away as you can. As long as you don't go back past the rear yard setback, there's nothing that states in there. However, again, the guidelines, there are two aspects of it. There are the design principles, which are pretty clear, but then there's also why we put this together. It talks about trying to maintain continuity, trying to maintain the neighborhood, trying to maintain the streetscape. That is pretty broad. And that application can be pretty subjective, and that's why it takes a consensus of the commission. It takes more than more than one person to agree on there, because those are the things that again, they're matters of opinion and personal taste. You have the principles to help you make those decisions, but now you're looking at this, you're stepping back and saying, well, when I think of this neighborhood, does it fit within, does it reasonably fit in? 125 feet doesn't reasonably be fit in. 80 feet gets a little closer. 60 feet from a staff opinion, again, being non-subjected to this, it would be hard for me to make an argument to say this doesn't comply with the spirit and intent. But that would be an opinion.
And I think, Carlos, I understand what you're saying in terms of the kind of amendment for the 5 feet, but going back to what you earlier said, and I agree with you, is that I don't think it's our job to make peace or to make those decisions, because even at the 120, if I'm correct, this passed zoning, right? There was nothing stopping us other than maybe the fit in, to your point, that would have stopped this. I worry it's a slippery slope to say 5, because you could say, well, why not 7? Why not 3? And I recognize people could petition, but I feel like we're kicking the can. I guess to your point, this passes it. And that's opinion based, but it doesn't mean everyone likes it. But you could argue no different than people don't like the design of a house or the color they chose or something. At a certain point, is that our role? It's tough.
No, I understand what you're saying, Brian, but even when we moved it at 80 feet, I mean, the front of his house was behind the other houses. I mean, to me, that's not meeting the spirit of intent of the neighborhood.
Agreed. And 80 feet, I think, would be a different conversation. So we're at 60,
Yeah.
but I don't know if is 55 going to be enough. Is it 53? Is it 50? Is it 44? Is it, I'm not, I understand people's concerns. They're valid. But it's a tough, it's what is our role, and I think that's the tough part, but I hear what you're saying.
It is tough. But when I look at the, kind of the residence, the house, where, the front door is, and if you take that line across, and it's kind of, behind the midpoint of the house to the east, you got the garage front, and you go west, it's kind of at the midpoint of the other house. And then it's so deep, it's much deeper than the rest of these houses. To me, it's just pushed back. I just would love to have it, personally.
I agree, but I also think, I think Jody mentioned this, but look at number 9. If the next owner of that house decided to tear down and build something bigger, which often happens,
Right.
it could go back 20 feet from there where it is now, and now we're talking a 5 or 6 to 8 foot difference. So you know, it doesn't, it still leaves a significant green space behind it too. And I am sensitive to the tree. I know, I agree with you, Carlos, the house will be there longer, but you know, as generally, it's tough to get a tree like that too. So it's not to say that's the only deciding factor. It's just, it's one of many.
So if we added that amendment for the 5 feet, how would we do that in the motion?
First would be a motion to approve the home as submitted, and then there'd be a second, and then after that, somebody would make another motion to amend the motion on the floor, and then there would have to be a second and a vote on there, and then
Would we essentially have 2 motions though?
correct.
One for the original and one for?
One to bring it to the table, that the commission's ready to act on this petition or this application as submitted. That would be a motion and a second. And then there would be a motion to amend the petition
And then we'd have to take a vote.
and
to
a
see if that
second
was-
and a vote. And then you would vote on the amended motion.
Gotcha. But do we need to talk to Mr. Politnik about that?
It's something worth the year's thought. I mean, again, I think it would be worthy to worthwhile this, see his thoughts.
Yeah. Mr. Politnik, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correct. And please correct me if I'm, saying it incorrectly.
It's Palatnik.
Politnik, sorry about that.
No, I understand everything that you said, and I agree with some points and a lot of the points. I have nothing further to say.
How would you feel about the amendment of the 5 feet? 5 feet closer.
I guess if that's what makes it agreeable, I'm okay with it.
Maybe we can just go ahead then and make the motion for, how it's there with 5 feet closer, if that's agreeable to everybody.
So the first motion would be, and then again, to follow your traditional recommended motion, to have a second, but not to take the roll call vote.
Can't we just add in the staff conditions that it would be 5 feet closer?
Yes. If the motion maker just brings it in automatically, then yes, you are correct.
Okay. Understood. Any more questions or comments before we get started? Seeing none, do I hear a motion? Would somebody like to
Yeah.
make a motion?
Motion to approve the petition for community design and concept storm water management plan review for a single new family home at 11 Forsythia Lane as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated August 19th, 2021, subject to any staff conditions noted here within that there will be an increased setback. The front yard setback will be at 55 feet.
Correct. I think that's pretty close. Is that right, Carlos?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Tim Spiegelglass and seconded by Jody Rich. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
I'll approve.
Commissioner Rich,
I'll approve as well.
and Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously with the amended setback as illustrated in the plan submitted.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. I know this
Thank
was
you.
a tough one. Okay. being said, I'll give you some time, Carlos, to kind of get things.
So want to note to Ms. Wagner, if she's ready to come in.
Oh, yeah, we need to bring her back. Mhm.
Okay. Chairman, we're ready for our next item.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. This is item A, the Opus Group redevelopment project, which was formerly the Irvington and Graham Courts. Petition type is MU Gateway District design review for a proposed 5-story, 207-unit multifamily apartment complex. Petitioner is Ryan Carley, the Director of Real Estate for the Opus Group. The property owner, Carlos, has this been transferred or is it still the?
They're still under contract pending final approvals.
Okay, so it's still, the property owner is still the 23 various property owners addressed off of Irvington and Graham Courts, which are currently under contract with the Opus Group. Okay, great. Carlos?
Chairman, we are doing the design review, which is the third step in a 3-step process for the MU Gateway District. And just to remind everyone that the city has approved a master development plan for the construction of a 5-story multifamily apartment complex building that would be placed replace 23 single-family homes that are off of Irvington and Ryan Courts. They're all under contract voluntarily. And they've been previously have tried in the past to petition to be redeveloped. This time it looks like it's going to fruition. The Opus Group is proposing the development. They were before the commission back in April and received approval of a development review, which I illustrated their master development plan. Now, the MU district is intended for developments along I-170 for sites of various sizes, as long as it's over 80,000 square feet. And is kind of designed to take into account when we have multi-building buildings within the site. In this case, there's only one building. The site's, I believe, 3 acres or so, and I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number. But that being said, they went through an extensive process to illustrate their building, the designs, and incorporated various comments that the commission had regarding screening of the balconies, the retaining and buffer wall, and the landscaping, and heard various concerns from adjacent neighbors regarding the impact that the development would have or impede on their properties. But overall, the process did go through. A master development plan was adopted. It was forwarded to the city council, which adopted that plan. And this is the final step. This is the step where you see, like you would, like any other single lot development, the improvement plans or what's proposed. And that's what you have before your packet. There hasn't been any significant modifications. The building footprint itself did kind of tilt a little, but nothing significant in there. And that was as they got more down to engineering and things of that nature. Overall, the elevations remain the same. The landscaping remain the same. You can see they've updated the plans to reflect the park area along the front in there. And I'll show you that more detailed illustration here. And of course, that will get extended to Hilltop down here to the east and to Price Road down here to the west, with the city doing the improvements on the western side, given a contribution from the developer, and then the developer doing the installation of the sidewalk on the eastern side to Hilltop. There is a lighting plan. It's the same lighting plan you had in place. Ms. Doty had highlighted where their placements and location makes it much easier to read. And there, and I agree and appreciate her efforts on that. So be glad to answer any questions. The petitioners are in attendance. They have their full team here, including their architect. But really, this is the design review. And given the size and that it is a single building, there is no significant change beyond what the commission has seen back in April, or what was presented to the city council. They've incorporated the screens again for those balconies, address the buffer wall and some of the landscaping, and also the front door and the elements to help identify it a little bit more. There were some comments from the petition, and I think all those were illustrated in other applications. The other thing, we know that there was concerns from adjacent property owners regarding how that would impact or have a weight on their property for future use as single family residents. And the city has been in discussions, is aware that there's been discussions of another group trying to assemble some properties along that area. Now that is going on privately. I mean, we are aware of those. I'm not sure there's been any finalization of acquisitions or contracts yet, but that does seem to be proceeding, and we'll see how that goes and update the commission if any new plans or developments are. Be glad to answer any specific questions. And again, this pretty much reflects what the commission saw back in April. The details, it includes all the amenities and the illustrations that were in there. And again, just to be honest, there was, the building just kind of tilted slightly.
Where did it tilt?
More along, I would say, like the footprint itself kind of tilted clockwise.
Like rotated, the whole building?
Yeah, but
rotated. Okay.
within a foot's tolerance.
Yeah, so, okay. My only question is about the Great River Greenway. I know it says to be determined, but I was just curious to see if there's been any further discussion on that or any developments with that.
There's a good question. So there has been discussions among the developer, the city, and the Great Rivers Greenway. This section of the Great Rivers Greenway path has not been, there's not a final design yet. There's a preliminary design. The Opus Group is willing to work with the GRG, or Great Rivers Greenway, on that. And so far, everything's kind of coordinated together. At this point, GRG is just really not sure where the crossing, understand where the crossing will be, but the property acquisitions and where the trail placements would be more specifically here.
Will that be determined before they potentially would start construction on this?
No, but I think some of the agreement is that if not, that the crossing would be pretty much along the current sidewalk path.
Okay.
In there, some of the discussion's been more of like how that, and I think here the developers trying to illustrate that there would be some type of I forgot what they call it,
Tabletop, where it
Tabletop,
kind of
mhm.
goes up to a
Correct.
flat, spot. And I think that's a good way to address that. Carol?
Yes, Carlos, I just wanted to check one question. The location of the entry drive, is that pretty much set at this point? I know for a while there was a lot of discussion about where we. actually
Yes,
live.
they were looking at that. One is that they've secured through the CVS property that they would have access through that. And that was primarily through actions of the commission and the council back in 2004, 2005. There was flexibility in the placement. This is the preferred placement in there. And the only issue at this point would be is that there is some title issues regarding the ownership of Price Road. that the city is taking charge and working through those. And with the full intent that it is our road, we maintain it and we surface it. But we need to confirm the title. We need to clean the title on it, really, is what that is. That may happen in various means. One, it could be voluntarily released by all the property owners voluntarily sign off to that because they don't maintain it. It's been the city's maintenance for years. Or that we go through a court to just assign the title or the right of way to the city. I don't believe there would be any opposition, but again, can't guarantee that. So the alternate route would be, well, there would be two possibilities. One is, well, the worst case possibility is that if we can't clean title off of Price Road, access would be off of Alice Place. But at this point, the city wants and is pursuing the Price Road acquisition. The goal here is to make sure it's done voluntarily. So I hope that answers your question. There's probably more than in there, but it has some interesting history and it's somewhat unique.
Who is the current owner?
Various.
Really?
I guess there was platted easements that eventually, as far as we know, we've always been surfacing, maintaining snow removal on this street. MoDOT owns parts of it, but it was just kind of one of these just a unique situation, hard to describe. Some of it could have been because the railroad right of way kind of created this unknown zone or non-titled zone. Some of it just poor planning, sorry.
Right. All right, any other questions or comments for Carlos? I don't know if we really need to have anybody with the Opus group unless somebody on the commission would like him to speak. Brian, otherwise, maybe do we just hear a motion?
Well, Chairman, if there are any public comments, we
thank you.
should provide an opportunity that
Absolutely.
might determine, and we do have one.
Good.
Right. So, Mr. Koenig, I'm going to transfer you over to a panelist. If you can state your full name and address, and if you have video capability, it'd be great if you would turn it on.
You start video.
You're up, sir.
Okay. Larry Koenig, 1131 Hilltop. I would like the commission to consider taking the following actions and making it part of the agreement and the approval process for this project. Number one, no construction traffic be allowed on Hilltop at all. That would be all part of the approval project process that you require. Second, that they find and get an entrance off of Price immediately. And they would not be allowed to tear down any homes other than what they need to get in and out to get that entrance constructed. If they can't clear up the entrance where they want it, then maybe they could do a temporary shared driveway agreement with CVS to get their construction traffic in or out. But Alice Place is narrow. People try and walk on it. There's no sidewalk yet. The street is not in good condition, and all that construction traffic on that street will just totally destroy it. There will be nothing left of it. Once they get their temporary road in, whether they go with the entrance they want, or if they have to do a temporary connection to CVS's driveway, then they can remove the rest of the homes and start their major construction and grading and everything like that. In the meantime, while they're waiting on that, they could be doing mitigation for environmental things like asbestos and all that stuff that could be done. But we're going to have to live with all this noise and things going on. And I think it would help us out that are left not to have to live with trucks running up and down Hilltop and the people living on Alice putting up with all the dust and dirt and everything like that. And that's all I really have right now.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your comment. I think it might be good to bring the developer on just to kind of ask what his intent is, as far as construction entrances and, when that might be put in place and, things like that.
Mr. Carly, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And then again, Mr. Carly, if you want me to bring in others from your team, just let me know.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Yeah, we addressed some of this in previous meetings with the city council. I was under the impression that this was design review only. I'm happy to address those comments and questions, but I thought, we already have approval through planning commission and through the council. So I was under the impression that this was only design review and approval, hopefully this evening. We're excited about this project. We've been working on it for quite some time. And appreciate the opportunity to continue to advance it with you all from a design perspective. But so as it relates to the CVS access, we do have an easement negotiated with CVS. We are now working with the landlord owner of that property to get their sign off and approval of that easement as well as from the lender of the landlord as well. So all of that is in front of them. We're hoping to wrap that up in the next few weeks or so. At which time we would plan to, assuming that the city can clean up the Price Road issue, to use the Price Road curb cut as our main construction ingress egress point. I think that answers the question. I don't know what else to say about that, quite frankly.
No, I think you answered it very well, and I appreciate it. And I think it's true, since we're in this design review, this may not be the proper time to have that as be a requirement, but I'm glad you're thinking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we're very thoughtful about impact of neighbors and have been from the onset of this project, and we'll be thoughtful about the construction as well. It's hard to not impact some of them through construction, and we acknowledge that, but we will do everything we can, and we want to be good neighbors and good partners with the city and with the neighborhood. And I hope we've expressed that throughout our efforts here.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the public, Carlos?
And if there is anybody else that would like to speak before the commission, if you can click the raise hand button located on the lower part of your monitor or screen.
And while we're waiting, is there any other questions or comments from the commission members?
Sure.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I like the design and the layout, and I appreciate Opus's efforts to respond to any of our comments and questions about the design.
Yeah, I agree.
I like where we've come to, and I don't have any further questions. I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Brian, did you have any questions? We can't see you, so I
Nope,
just-
nothing from mind.
Good. All right. Carlos,
That's
seeing
it.
none, I guess, no comments anymore.
I do have a motion for the commission's consideration. There are no other public comments or anybody else that's identified.
No, so
wanting
if we
to speak.
can, if you can bring up the recommended motion, that'd be great.
There you go.
Do I hear a motion?
Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to move that we approve the petition for design review in accordance with section 400.2180 for construction of a 5-story, 207-unit multifamily apartment complex in accordance with ordinance number 2726 as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated August 19, 2021, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner and seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ryan. Okay, Carlos, I'll give you some time before we move on to item B.
All right, Chairman.
All right, item B, new business, item B, Birdie Lane subdivision.
Again,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Okay, the petitioner is, review is a final subdivision plat for an 8-lot, single-family residential subdivision of the properties currently listed at 9411 and 9415 Old Bonham Road. Petitioner is Jamie Henson with the Sterling Company, and the property owner is Freeman Homes LLC. Carlos?
Sorry for the interruption, Chairman. I just quick to the draw here.
No worries.
So Birdie Lane subdivision, the approval of a subdivision is similar to a MU district. It's a two-part process. There is a preliminary plat in which the commission engages in a pretty extensive and thorough review of the potential of subdividing specific property. They also look at the contours, the streets, the infrastructure, the stormwater impacts and entries, impacts to natural surroundings and adjacent properties. It goes through all that process for the approval of what we term a preliminary subdivision plat. In this case, there was a plat that was submitted to subdivide two properties, 9415 and 9411 Old Bonham Road. They're just one lot to the west of the intersection of Dealman and Old Bonham on the northern side. They're pretty extended, deep lots going north to south. And based on our code criteria, there was a potential to carve out about 10 to 11 properties on there, assuming that there was no other requirements for detention or contours. We received a plat for an 8-lot subdivision with two common ground, one specifically a stormwater detention facility kind of centered in the lot. And there it went through the review and the approval of the commission. The next step in that is what we term as a final subdivision plat. The final subdivision plat specifically just is the legal instrument that gets recorded for the creation of the lots through St. Louis County. It's a state mandated process. At this point, the commission is just reviewing the plat itself, and this is the plat. The plat does not contain any information regarding topography. The plat doesn't contain any information regarding house footprints or trees preserved or the width of the street, the sidewalk or such. All it does is illustrate each of the legal aspects of the subdivision grounds, which includes each individual lot, all easements, all right-of-ways, and any other significant notes that are to be maintained on the property. In this case, this plat goes above and beyond to conform to the conditions of recent amendment by the commission to establish easements for all the detention swells that will be serving the common ground detention basin. It also illustrates the calculations for the size of the lots that were used in there. That'll be more in your paper version. And then we also get a copy of the indentures, and the indentures also note, and this was shared with the commission at the last meeting, how the common ground and those easements would be maintained and such. So this kind of gives, allows the process for each individual lot to come before the commission without its own on-site detention system for the first construction of the home, subject to the conditions that were approved by the council, recommended by the commission and approved by the council. So if a lot down the road, which has has a home built on it, and that house is built at the size of the average, they won't have to provide on-site detention because the subdivision as a whole is designed to control and capture that detention in there. But if that lot comes in with a house greater than the size of the average, they will provide additional detention beyond that of the subdivision. Or if 5 years from now, a new house that's built adds an addition or puts flat work that requires its own detention, it will be triggered in our ordinance that they have to provide their own on-site detention for that increment over that average or the original calculation of that building footprint. So be glad to answer any specific questions. Again, really, this is just the legal instrument that will be recorded at St. Louis County. Again, on our website, you can find the preliminary plat, and you can also find the improvement plans that give more specifics to the location of the infrastructure, the roads, the sidewalks, potential building pads, tree locations, and things of that nature. This is just the formal document that establishes the lots themselves. Chairman, be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions, comments? Brian?
Nope, sir.
Now, I will note the actions of the commission are in the form of a recommendation because this also has to go to council. And ultimately, the action here authorizes the city to sign off on this document to be recorded with St. Louis County.
Great, great. Thanks for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a motion? Or do we have any public comments?
I do have a representative, Mr. Jokers, in attendance. If Mr. Jokers, do you have any comments? Let me know. And then if there's anybody else that would like to speak in regards to this petition, if you click the raise hand button, I believe it's on the lower part of your screen or monitor. And Chairman, there are none.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to recommend to approve the petition for final subdivision plat in accordance with chapter 405 subdivision regulations for the single family lot subdivision to be known as Birdie Lane, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated August 19, 2021. Subject to any staff conditions noted therein, with the condition that the final in the final plat is reviewed by the city attorney.
Thank you, Carol. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner and seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Commissioner Spiegelglass? Approved. Commissioner Lewis?
Approve.
Commissioner Rich?
Approve.
Commissioner Wagner?
Approved.
And Chairman Dragil?
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously. This recommendation, apologize, I just lost it, will be forwarded to the city council for first reading on September 14th.
Very good. Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to item C, which is 9 Ramsgate Drive. The petition type is a community and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home. The petitioner is Doug Cohen with Douglas Properties. Property owner is Doug Cohen Real Estate Incorporated. Carlos?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Brian?
can I'd like to recuse myself for this one.
No problem. That sounds good. Can you please take Mr. Lewis off the panel?
Yes. Okay, Mr. Lewis, I'm going to change your your role from a panelist to an attendee. Thank you, sir. All right, Chairman, we're set.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Chairman, we have a petition for a new single-family home to be constructed at 9 Ramsgate Drive. There was an existing single-family home on the property. It's kind of centered in the monitor on your screen right here. In here, it's kind of nestled between 2 newer homes. Now, from earlier 2000 and such. It's a unique shaped lot. It's not completely a pie-shaped lot, but it's not fully rectangular in any means. However, the lot has an excess of 15,000 square feet. It has a frontage in excess of 100 feet and has a depth in excess of 150 feet. Therefore, it does not require site plan review. So it brings it to community design review and concept stormwater management plan review. Under the community design review, the staff has reviewed the petition application. We find it in full conformance with the spirit and intent of our guidelines. In there, we don't have any additional further comments to suggest. The petition actually started, and I think the link that's on the website still has this as a 2-car front entry garage. After the trustees received notification of the petition application, they reached out to the developer, and then the developer changed the design to the one that you see here on your monitors today. It is a 2-car side entry garage. Overall, the design stays the same, and they were able to accommodate the driveway and driveway turnaround without any issues. Again, from the review process, the roofing, the massing, the elevation articulation, the amount of masonry, all fulfill and meet the guidelines, the recommendations of the guidelines, including the site entry of the garage. On the site improvements itself and the stormwater management, as required by code, they will provide a on-site detention system here located at the southern corner of the property grounds, or what I'll call the southeast corner here. All the rain water that is collected from the roof of this home will connect to this detention system and then allow for a slow release. It's calculated to the size to meet the MSD standards of 15-year, 20-minute storm. But in terms of doing it's not based on the increment, it's based on the full area of the roof. The driveway will be on the north side or on the higher side, so it allows for plenty permeability to be provided on that, because the driveway is not captured into the detention. The building plans show that the sump pump will be located back here at what I would term as the southwest corner of the lot, but we were not sure where the point of discharge would be. So the only concern we have from the site plan that can be addressed either through some type of landscape plan or some type of French drain system is that there's a volume of water that's going to come here, and then it's expected to turn and head towards the street. If we can capture some of that water and also redirect that sump pump to release towards the street, we want to capture that and just get that away from the main building footprint of the adjacent neighbor. I have been in discussions with the adjacent neighbor. He's also representative of a trustee, and I told him we would have a sit down or walk through with the developer to kind of discuss possible solutions to this area. So I have indicated that as part of your motion. One of the conditions is that we develop some type of landscape plan or BMP to help address that in there. And it's not that this current system won't work. It's just that there's a significant volume being collected, and it needs to move. It just can't just sit in this area, and that's reflected in the motion. Be glad to answer any additional questions. I apologize on that. Again, I have the architect is in attendance uh, uh, on this, and that's all I have.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions or comments? The only question I have is related to the elevation. I think the elevation looks like it's raised higher than the existing ground, but there's two new homes on either side. So, I mean, does it make sure we don't have like the mounding issue that sometimes we have? I doubt we do, but I just figured I would ask.
Well, there is, given the conditions of the two new homes, there is a good grade difference between the two sides
That's right.
in there. So you do see in that contouring, there is quite a bit. It doesn't exceed the height requirements of, the height regulations that the city has. But they are bringing some of those contours in. So you could see here that you have quite a bit of slope in there, as compared to what the older home had here. So, and I can get a streetscape. That might be a good view to kind of take a look at. Bear with me 1 second. So I'll have to get the monitor to change over. Okay, I'm gonna share the screen on the public side. So bear with me 1 second.
No problem.
So here's the older home, and you can see that drop off like right around there. When you're driving in the car, you start going down in elevation, but not
Right.
not significantly. But there is a difference here. So what they're bringing here is flattening more here, and here you would have more of a slope than you have on the outset. But given some of the lot, while it meets the dimensional criteria, it is just a unique shape.
Right.
And I'll see if I can get a little bit more 3D view. I thought I could get a 3D view.
Yeah, it doesn't look
on
like
them.
it's giving you
not
the
doing it
option.
for me.
But I think it answered my question when I saw the other house, to the
Okay.
right that has that retaining wall. It does, I'm not concerned by that.
Okay.
so. Okay, anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments? Brian?
Brian is recused from the side.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. So maybe we can hear from the petitioner if we need to.
Bear with me 1 second. All right, Mr. Bileski, I'm going to promote you to panelist. Again, if you can state your full name and address, and if you have video capability, it'd be great to have that on.
I am present and I can answer any questions anybody has. But I think we're doing fine here so far. Let's just carry on.
Good, good, good. I appreciate it. Any specific questions for Mr. Jim? No?
Chairman, if you can kind of go over a little bit about how that grade works, just to make sure. I think it's
Oh, okay.
just to
Jim,
kind of
did you,
describe it.
the discussion about the grading, with the front yard?
Right, it appears we're gonna have to get a swale coming out. I noticed on the existing photo right there, there was a rock swale running through there. We'll have to direct the water perhaps in a similar manner between the proposed house and the house on the left.
Then maybe you could add some discussion. I think Carlos mentioned something about the sump pump drain. Where is that likely going to be discharging, and will it go into that same sort of?
It can be taken into the detention area as opposed to being daylighted.
The concern on that, well, we would welcome that, is that the detention is sized based on that house square footage, which is, again, well and above the MSD standards, which uses an increment. So I'm actually taking in more detention on new single family homes than previously existed, even almost in some cases twice the amount or more than the hard surface area that was already on a property. The issue is with a sump pump, we never know the groundwater table. And it can have the ability where it could take up some of that capacity that we're trying to reserve for that storm increment. But a lot, at least to the best of my knowledge, is usually we don't find out how active that sump pump is going to be until it gets put in place.
So that's something that can be decided.
Correct. Or they can increase the flow well or add additional flow well to take in the sump pump capacity. What we don't want to do is reduce the capacity of what's calculated for the home.
Right. We don't want the sump pump discharge, if it's not going in there, to be a problem for the neighbor.
Correct.
So, but I'm not sure if we can answer that question right now, but just be thinking about it as we go on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. Any other questions, comments? Carlos, is there any public comments?
If there is anybody that would like to speak in regards to this petition, please let me know. I will note, I did have a conversation with the adjacent neighbor who is a subdivision trustee on this one. Now, he was not going to be in town for this meeting. His concern was, again, the side entry garage. He had, because that's in their indentures, so they had that discussion with the property owner and convinced them to change it. Now, I noted to them, again, this is where we have sometimes we have a little friction, that from the city's perspective, with a front entry garage that's well designed, and Mr. Belusky did a nice job in there, is I have less impervious coverage.
Right.
By them pursuing these side entries, they're creating a lot of hardscape on there, in there, but that was by their choice, and they negotiated with the developer to get that changed. The second thing was that there was concerns from some of his subdivision residents on the further end, specifically the amount or volume of water that they get towards the homes that are on the southern end of Ramsgate. And we went through the process and the on-site detention that are now required by code. And that appears like it has alleviated or addressed the concerns or comments that he was expecting for this petition. So.
Good. Well, I appreciate that the developer, contacted the neighborhood trustees and spoke to them and got a, had that review with them. So I think that's good. Okay, that being said, Carlos, were there any other public comments?
I see none, sir.
Okay. Being that, do I hear a motion?
And the motion will be on your monitor. Sorry.
Good. Go ahead, Carol.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
That'd be great.
Motion to approve the petition for community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 9 Ramsgate as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated August 19, 2021, subject to any staff conditions noted therein. And the conditions noted are to address the swale along the south property line and some discharge, traffic management plan, landscape plan with assessment of trees, final stormwater site improvement plan, and limitation of top of foundation, final plan submission, verification, and limit to foundation exposure.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner, seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously 4-0.
All right, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Remember to bring Brian back, Carlos.
Yes, he should be.
I'm back.
There he is.
Okay, good, good. Good. Okay, we'll move on to 7 Arbor Road. Petition type is a site plan, community design, concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home. Petitioner is Denise Isel, I'm sorry, project manager with Jeff Day and Associates. Property owner is Robert Berkeley and Son Development Company, LLC. Carlos?
Yes, Chairman. So we received a petition for the construction of a new single-family home at 7 Arbor Road. You had the subject property before you here. The property well exceeds the minimum standards in the SR district. It's approximately 47,000 square feet in width. However, it doesn't have an abutting right-of-way. The actual road goes through this property via easement, so that's why it has depth. There's also a small ravine that crosses through the property that also impacts, some of the topography or layout of the parcel itself. There was an existing single-family home that home has been torn down, and we received this petition for the construction of a new single-family home on the property grounds. And I'm trying to get the bear with me 1 second because I need to get the building plan set. So here's the buildings plan set for the new single family home. It is a unique in terms of the lot. The high point of the lot is at the far rear end, and the low point of the lot is where the easement or street side access would be. Therefore, this home is always going to have a lower height at its rear yard and a higher height at its front yard. And what the architect's done here is to kind of break up that home elevation, create a 2-level single-family residence, and used a retaining wall system to try to level out that property, so you don't have a front yard walkout basement, let's say, per se, in there. It's a nice design, fully brick fronted in there, and you have the building elevations as part of your packet here. This is the front elevation. It has plenty of breaking in the mass. It's got different roof lines. It is a side entry garage. This is the rear elevation. Again, different articulations, use of material, inclusion of brick along the rear. And then this is the side elevations here, inclusion of brick in a walkout area. This is the front yard here on the right-hand side, and you can see how they're working, trying to work the grades to accommodate the elevations and the house as is in there. And then this is the garage side elevation. And you can see where it's a little bit flatter and they can access the side entry garages. They're using some of the roof line to break up the building mass. And you can see the windows kind of nestled into that line in there. So overall, from a staff perspective, the building in itself meets the spirit and intent of the design guidelines in there, and it is fully compliant with the SR district zoning regulations. The next aspect that would lead to, and what we'll probably talk about the most, is going to be the site grading on the property. And bear with me 1 second here. Make sure I have the, so this is an area in which we have, because of that ravine that runs through the front of the property, we've been made aware and we're cognizant of the watershed in that area and the volume of water that goes down through there. It's a couple of things. It's a large watershed. Once that watershed hits the limits of Olivet, it actually becomes floodplain area as part of Ladue. This ravine, which again is primarily a watershed collector that runs south, goes under various driveways. In some of those driveways, the ravine itself is in the crossing of the driveway. There are areas where the culvert or the pipe of the crossing just is too small for the volume of water. So we've had attempts where it backs up as you get uphill in various properties within this subdivision. To some extent, there's good and bad with that. That kind of helps minimize the volume that's going south, especially into the floodplain area. We're responsible not just for Olivet area residents, but the floodplain and the area as a whole. The people in the properties east of the Arbor Road, which are off of Covington, have severe flooding in there, and this kind of holds back some of the water. We've had a couple of accessory structures in the pool, I think, that's come before the commission in there, so they've had some water impacts. Some of that is because of the infrastructure in terms of the street. It's an easement. It's barely a lane width. It's non-conforming in there, so there's no improvements to help address coordinatedly the issues with the stormwater shed. So when this petition, when it became apparent that this house was being turned down, the subdivision was very proactive to engage with the city to get a hold of the developer and then have discussions with that developer independently. The subdivision also hired a private consultant to do an analysis and a review of the water conditions of that watershed and impacts, and what options could be available for consideration to try to improve those. You have copies of those in your packets in there. And then they also had meetings with the developer in there, and the developer's representative is in attendance. We also have representatives from the subdivision along with some of the neighboring properties. While their concerns are immediate, there are some issues on this what we call Lower Arbor area, but they're pretty significant. They'd be difficult to try to resolve within this property alone. However, they've been in discussions with the developer on a couple of options. One is increasing the size of some of the culvert crossing on the driveway, and looking at to improve the ravine bank to make it more wider so it can hold some additional water or so in there. The caveat is, though, within the code aspect of the city and the role of the city is that this new home will have its own on-site detention. So the amount of stormwater that's generated by the new home itself as opposed to the other home, which did not, that excess or increment amount is being taken off on there. While there are some means that, that we can look at this individual site to do some improvements, there's still a bigger issue that we just can't resolve on this lot alone. And I think there's some recognition in the consultant's report, and probably after talking with some of the trustee representatives that would concur. And they've made the city aware of their issues and their concerns through this report and through discussions with our staff in there. So at this point, I think it would be best to kind of first to have a discussion regarding the architectural aesthetics. If there's any concerns or comments regarding the architect's design, it would be good for me to know in there, because I think, from our view, it's consistent with, or it meets the spirit and intent of the design guideline. Then secondly, I think more time needs to be applied to the site improvement plans in there, and having that comfort level that if the commission's comfortable with the building, we can spend more time, talking about the improvement plans and not have any surprises down the road that there was some issues with the building itself in there. I'd like to hear from the commission regarding the building design, any questions you may have about the site, but I think it'd be prudent to hear the petitioner, let them talk about what their perspectives on the site improvements will be, and then from there are various representatives from the subdivision that are online, and listen to some of their comments and kind of assess those. But I would be more comfortable knowing, if there's more than just the site, if there are issues with the building, I'd like to know that early on than to hold off on those comments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I also think we got to wait until we take some of those comments in case some of the
Yeah,
neighbors
absolutely.
have some design issues, as well. I personally do not. I think it looks great. I have no issues with that. Other commission members, how do you guys feel?
I'm okay, but there's a note in our packet from, I assume, the trustee that did talk about some of the facade things that the trustees wanted. Were those addressed in this plan, or was that?
No, those are comments reflected from that final plan set
From our
of what
current
they'd
set?
like to see. Yes.
Okay,
And those are talking about more brick, right?
more brick and more stone, I believe.
But they're also exceeding kind of the requirements that we have right now. So with a full face. But we can talk to them about that. Carol and Brian and Jody, did you guys have any quick thoughts regarding?
Nothing jumping out at me.
My quick thought is that it is almost too symmetrical with the two chimneys coming up and the full brick facade. There's almost, I'm thinking about that. I haven't,
Okay. No, I get it.
just not sure about that yet.
Okay. I think the change in elevation helps with that, but I understand your thought. Okay, Carlos, maybe we can bring on the
Okay.
petitioner and we can kind of.
Mr. Day, I'm going to promote you to panelist. I'm not sure, or I don't see anybody else on your team on there. If there is, just let me know. And then again, if you can state your name and address, and if you have video capability to have that on.
What is the material in between the garage and the main two-story? Is it almost? That's glass? Okay.
All right, I may be having some kind of, Mr. Day.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, sir.
Okay. Do you still need my name and address and all of that, or?
Yes, if you don't mind, just for the record, sir.
Sure. So my name is Jeff Day. I'm not Denise Isley. She's one of my project managers. My address is 14311 Manchester Road, and that's in zip code 63011. This home is designed in the classic Georgian style. That's why it is so symmetrical. If you maybe do a little research on Georgian, you'll see that it's kind of, this is kind of representative of what you'll find in Georgian style architecture. And I'm open to any questions, comments, conversation you guys would like to have.
At this point, Carlos, do you want to keep this to the design issues, or would you?
No, I would welcome both. I think Mr. Spiegel had some comments
Yeah.
on that, and
Did you have some?
I just wanted to see, did you guys address from the trustees letter? I assume that you were sent about the facades.
As Carlos mentioned, we have not. As a matter of fact, today was the first I had seen of that letter. Because as Carlos said, this meets with all the spirit and intent and design guidelines.
I would like to hear from the trustees and see what they say too. as well.
Okay. Any more discussion, Mr. Day, about some of the comments or discussions that you've already had regarding the drainage issues?
Yeah, so regarding the drainage, Carlos did mention to you that all the water we are actually going to create as runoff, we're actually directing that into about 400 cubic feet of in-ground storage. And all the additional runoff, if you look at, I believe it was Mr. Gartenberg that they hired to consult with regarding the water issues they have, those are issues that are not caused by this lot for sure. These are, these are just a cause of gravity and perhaps development that's well above this neighborhood. And Mr. Gartenberg states in his report that he looked for the past, I believe, 10 years of permits for development on and around, I guess, this street. And apparently, he also states he's very familiar with this area. I guess maybe he lives nearby. And so his statement is in essence saying that the water problems are not from the development based on the permits that had been pulled for development over the past 10 years. None of the water runoff is caused by the new development. And I think that would be the case here as well, because we've designed in all of the water, the gutters, the downspouts, all of that gets collected and brought into our storage area. And so it's really an existing issue that needs to be resolved. And I was not a part of the conversations. And Mr. Berkeley, who he's the builder, he's not the owner. The Hepners are the owners. I don't know if they're in the room here, the Zoom room or whatever, but Berkeley had conversations with the neighbors regarding a bigger culvert under the driveway. Carlos mentioned that. And I think some of the neighbors, if I understand correctly, have some work to do as well with their ravines and culverts. And then the hope is that the water can flow more freely. And again, I wasn't part of the conversation, so I don't know if there's just deferred maintenance that has been laying in wait on some of these other properties or what, I'm not sure. But as Carlos mentioned, we cannot resolve all the water issues in this neighborhood on this lot. The best we can do is not dam up the water flow that has been an issue for poor, if you look in Gartenberg's report, he states that it's been an issue like this for 18 years. And he hasn't seen it get worse in those 18 years, if I understood his report correctly.
Okay, Carlos, I got a quick question in light of that. I mean, so it sounds like we have ponding on this lot in particular. And then if we increase the size of these culverts, we're gonna free that water up. And if other neighbors do the same thing, we'll free up all that water. But if I'm understanding you correct, there's gonna be potential impacts once all this water is freed up.
Correct.
And where's that all gonna go and who's that going to impact?
And some of it is more, and it's a very good question, and it's a difficult one to answer because those holdups help reduce some of that velocity.
Right.
We had a property owner on Covington Meadows recently in which some footings were washed away given the amount of volume under the current conditions that were going on, and that was with the house, like the old house, being removed in that process. I think it's something that I can understand why there are some merits into that, but I think we got to get a better understanding of what some of the off effects would be. And it's not just, the process of just being able to move it and so, but we also have and are responsible to some extent of other properties that are further downhill and how that impacts them.
Right.
In there. This detention, that would be provided for the house, again, reduces or minimizes the impact of this house or these improvements having on the property. There are some concerns about the movement and placement and such, but they're pretty insignificant to the overall issue that's going on in there. And what the correct solution is multifaceted. One is, the lack of infrastructure. There's been a lot of development on Arbor over the years, and that it's not just within the past 20 years. There's a lot of driveway improvements. There's been owners that have added on to their houses. There are new owners that are in there, and then there are owners that have been there for years and have made various improvements onto their property. So we're getting a lot of surface area that's being created. It's a hard balance because while we want to get that, yes, I think a goal would be is to get that stormwater moving, but not at a rate that it's going to erode or impact other adjacent properties. This street has no curb, no gutter in there. I do, the street conditions they're pretty well. It's a pretty well maintained street, but with limited traveling on it. So it seems to hold itself well, and it's adequate for that. There are several improvements that have been done on this street, which were done prior to the detention standards in there. I think number 5 is a good example. 5 Arbor Road is a pretty sizable house compared to what was there before. And there are also some property transfers that are taking place where we'll see another potential new home being developed just south of the site in there. And all these are going to impact that in there. Long story short, I think it merits further review of, is increasing the size of some of these culverts the best solution in there, and balancing what impacts that will have further down. And that's a hard question to answer. That goes typically above and beyond of what is required for code for specific, just for a house.
Right.
In there, but I understand, and again, they've been very proactive to come back with, hey, these are things, possible, these are issues, and then these are possible solutions, and I think it's worthy to have that discussion.
And it helps resolve the issues for this street in this neighborhood, but
Mhm.
will all of that run off into another neighborhood?
Correct.
That's gonna be much greater problem than what they already are experiencing. Has MSD been pulled into this conversation?
They've actually have, in that report, have requested that they like to have MSD do a review of the home. I would be concerned about MSD doing a review of the home. I would like MSD to do a review of the impact of this property along with the impact of this basin as a whole, and not to be narrowed down to just what's going on to this parcel, because there are some, I think the report that was put together provides a pretty broad view that, that this is an issue.
Right.
I don't want to make the assumption that making tweaks or adjustments to this property is going to solve those issues. I think there are bigger things here that need to be addressed. There's an opportunity that there is a new house. There's another new house that may be coming down within the next couple of months in there, and that might give the subdivision as a whole the ability to try to coordinate some of these improvements or create some type of detention system that's a little bit broader.
Do you have could you pull up maybe the Google Maps and show us where this water all goes once it leaves this neighborhood?
Bear with me 1 second, sir.
I'd like to just make a comment. at this
Yeah, go
point.
ahead.
Don's predecessor, John Roper, talked to us about stormwater and all of that, and talked to us about that. Probably one of our next steps will be to break down large areas like the area around Arbor Road and deal with some stormwater with that for that whole section.
Right.
Not because dealing with one property isn't gonna impact the ability of the area to deal with stormwater.
Right.
And we started to take a look at larger sections of the city when Jonathan left. But that's really, again, what we're talking about here,
Right. Right.
taking that
this-
step.
I agree.
But
I agree.
if I understand it, that if they're gonna put a detention on that property and bring the whole entire roof into that detention area, this is a plus to that neighborhood.
Oh,
Between what was happening before. You're taking up, whatever size house that is and dumping it into a detention area, where before that was going into that culvert.
but the bigger issue, I think, is the complete runoff. And when they change the size of that culvert that's there, make it larger. Now downstream of that is going to get a much greater, flow of water that could impact those other neighbors. And
That shouldn't be up to our commission to make that part of the call. I wouldn't think about.
but we have to be
how they
careful
handle
it doesn't, when they do those changes, that it doesn't make it worse, because they will, say you approved these
They-
changes in these site plans, which created a problem with their house.
Right down the
Right.
street.
It's part of what, it is though part of what we do have to look at,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It makes things complicated, no question about that. But it is still part of our obligation.
But what's very interesting about this is you could see that it's a defined creek.
Mhm.
It was interesting because we do have a buffer ordinance that would have impacted the placement. It doesn't, it protects and preserves the stream buffer bank is the goal. It's not about the volume of water and such. And it's only those that are identified by ordinance, those identified in USGS maps. The county aerial here that you see, this is a county parcel map that identifies the floodplain and the 500-year floodplain. Does identify that ravine. I use the term ravine because the USGS does not consider this a stream or a creek. And I double checked, the topography maps to make
Yeah.
sure in there. Now, what that would have done, I'm not sure. It could still be the same house, but with a further setback. But this is, a ravine that's probably formed over time. And again, it goes back to the infrastructure system that's in place, that's been in place, as long as some of the older houses here. The stormwater system kind of releases right around here, and then it just kind of channels through along here, and then it becomes what you see, this blue line here, this ravine. Then it goes into the city limits of Ladue, and then it starts as a flood area in there. Everything off of Ramsgate is kind of set and designed to go to the west. So these properties along here have Ramsgate has minimal impact in terms of the properties along Arbor. I'm not going to say that it's zero, but it's pretty minimal. It's all aligned and assigned, and it goes into a detention system here. This ravine takes everything along this property line here on the western property line of Arbor and extends down probably to Jacqueline, Greenland, and these are the Covington Meadows properties I was talking about in there. Now, when I turn on, I should be able to turn on the contours. You'll see how the contours all kind of collect and go right around this area, and it just continues on to that point where that channel, where they're looking at that driveway and that crossing. When this house was developed, and this is not an old house, I know it's changed hands recently, but in there, it didn't require a detention system. It had a horseshoe driveway and quite a bit of surface improvements, all contributing to that. This house, I believe, is under contract, and we haven't received any new plans, but there's been discussion about new construction here too. Along these areas here off of Covington, they've had a lot of erosion along this back area. That as I pull back, you'll see where that blue line starts to cross and gets right along that portion. That erosion primarily caused by the volume that's going down.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe we can hear from some of the public comments.
I'm gonna bring Carol and Frank Trotter, and I believe the Trotters are part of the Subdivision Trustee Association in there. And if I'm incorrect, correct me if I'm wrong. And Mr. Trotter, if you can at least identify yourselves, and name and address, and then if you have the video capability, it'd be great if it could be on.
Should be on here. Good evening, everybody. First of all, looking forward to a great new addition to Lower Arbor Road. Certainly had some good discussions with Bob Berkeley and Steve Mathis as part of this process. And I want to make sure everybody can hear me first.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Two, we don't expect number 7 to solve all the problems in the world. We're completely cognizant of that and agree with that. The water enters yards at number 8, the north end of number 8, through a very large culvert that was put in 15, 20 years ago, and piles up often on the driveway there at number 8 before letting through to number 7, the development in question. And we hope to work with Mr. Berkeley and the owner to create a situation where they don't have a lake. It's been not a lot of maintenance in the last couple of years. It probably does need to be re-widened And when you have an opportunity to build a new driveway along the south edge of number 7, we're hoping that the developer and the commission choose to suggest that there's a larger culvert that then connects. The water actually is intended to go underground at number 6, Carlos, so we could kind of roll down just slightly north of that red car that's sitting in the driveway. If you go right to the border of number 6 at the north side, there is a pipe that then goes underneath 6 and part of 5 and under the road to the creek, which is on the far east side. From that point forward, the water is in the creek all the way to the Olivet border on the east side of the road. All of Covington is uphill, so the water doesn't escape and go into Covington. And the drainage served is, as Carlos mentioned, Old Bonham, a little portion of the far north end of Ramsgate. The Bowood subdivision actually has pipes connecting to dump the water at the junction of number 7 and number 6 on the east side of the road into a small system that we have. So all that water collects, and it has increased per the report that Mike put together over the last 20 years. We've been in we're at number 1 and number 2 Arbor Road. I am a trustee of the Lower Arbor Road subdivision, and we've been in the neighborhood for 40 years and have seen more and more water piling up at number 8, number 7, and number 6 over that period of time. And I think our primary suggestion is just that we work together, possibly widen or deepen the ditches that goes through there, have a larger pipe at the south end of 7 that can connect, if possible, to the pipe that goes under number 6. Otherwise, Joanne Schutte is going to be very upset with an extra lake in her yard, as the commission has noted. But once it gets in the creek, it will flow. And I think the creek capacity, I don't have a formal engineering background, should handle most rains, not every rain. And then exit out into the Oakley subdivision in Ladue. I'd be happy to answer any water questions first, and I can address the design question in a minute if you'd like me to.
What's the size of the pipe going underneath Arbor Road?
I'm gonna have to lean on under
nice?
Arbor Road pipe. I'm guessing it's somewhere between 12 and 18. There is a collection point. You see, we're just to Carlos, if you could move a little bit in between the U of the number right of it, right? Yeah, right up against the road. There's a drain there that connects into the pipe, and that goes directly under the road into the creek, a little bit south of where Carlos is, right there. That's the crossing point. I believe it's 12 or 18 inches. There's historically been a fox living in there, but I think it's disparted.
12 or 18 is a pretty big difference.
I understand. I've never seen that pipe fill. And I've trudged up and down in the rain quite a few times over the years. If you look on the very east side of number 5, we constructed a rock on the east side, Carlos, right up against the property line on the east. To the east of the road there, we constructed a runoff area there that handles water that comes in at a drain at the junction of number 7 and number 6 on the east side of the road. MSD actually helped out with that a little bit, but there's a Google. There's a small drain that carries some of the water there, and that in extreme rains gets a bit filled up because it also handles water from Bowood and from Covington. And we have videos that Carlos has access to if you want to see them at some point. So you go forward.
It won't, they didn't go down the full street. That's as far south as I can.
I guess Google gave up on the small road there, but right about there to the left, east side of the road, you're on the west side. Right here, there's two drains that actually enter a pipe that goes straight south along the east side of the road and then enters into the creek. If you turn the view to the right a little bit further, you can just barely see through the trees, the rock that was there. It's interesting, those trees look different. But I think that's substantially filled in over the last couple of years and probably needs to be, if I were the owner, there would certainly be wanting to deepen and broaden that at this point, because that's, I believe, pretty well filled in since the Google photo was taken.
May I ask a question?
Sure, Jeff.
So I'm seeing all the bits and pieces, like this riprap washway, and Bob Berkeley had sent me an email, copied Carlos in it, and they mentioned the culvert under his driveway and whatnot. My question is, I don't remember Mike Gartenberg, if it's the same Mike Gartenberg that was the plan reviewer for Ladue. I don't remember him being a civil engineer. Is that correct?
Honestly, I have no idea. So
yeah, I don't believe he is. And so my question would be, are all these bits and pieces that we're talking about part of a comprehensive plan that takes in consideration kind of the larger picture, not just a one man's opinion, but an actual civil engineering company that does a broader scope study of what's going on? And I ask that because we had a project in Glendale, not Berkeley, but in essence, they went somewhere in the range of about a half a mile radius of this property and did a water runoff study to see what the impacts to that particular lot would be. And it seems to me that, and I get it's completely fine with me to have this conversation tonight about bits and pieces, but it seems to me that there's a bigger picture that really needs to be resolved, and that should be kind of a community effort beyond the Mike Gartenberg report and into more of a civil engineer's study of what's really going on and how to correct it, because it
like a hydrology report.
Yeah, absolutely a hydrology report, because it seems to me like we're talking about a bunch of Band-Aids or Scotch tape on issues, and as painful as I'm sure it would be financially, I think a broader study is going to get everybody going in the right direction. Do you guys think you could get your community to kind of rally around that financially and approach it more professionally?
Couple things. Thanks for the idea. Mike, as far as I know, honestly, maybe Carlos or somebody knows if he is an engineer of some sort, tried to be as comprehensive as he could. He looked at MSD maps, looked at the water runoff, talked to people at the city and beyond, and certainly we'd support that. The 8 homes on the subdivision have tapped ourselves out pretty well with Mike, frankly, on the financial side, and would welcome, say, MSD coming in and taking a look at it. But I think, unless for some reason Olivet chose to be involved, which we certainly could support as well. But we thought we did a pretty comprehensive approach with Mike, not a civil engineer. And I think if you sort of stand there and look at the water for a long period of time, the suggestions he made were pretty rational. As I said, your project at number 7 isn't going to solve the whole thing.
Right.
2 parts, I don't want your client to move into the house, close, and have a lake in their front yard the first week and be calling Bob all hopped up. But we also want to solve the problem collectively, number 8, number 7, and number 6, for the area in general. And once the water gets to the south end of number 6, basically it goes under the road and into the creek. And our belief, not a civil engineering opinion, that will be handled and won't create as big a problem just because of the contour where that creek goes into Oakley is a little further east of the main floodplain, and it should drain straight on through into ultimately Deer Creek. But, it's a great suggestion. I think financially we're probably tapped out.
Okay, and well, my other concern, I guess, around that is you could take these suggestions from anybody, Mike or anybody, and if they haven't done actual studies, I mean, I can look at it and give you ideas. If they haven't done actual studies and calculations that prove out, sheet flow being captured by these culverts and where the water is going, there's a liability issue. There's a liability issue regarding damage that can be caused by other properties. And it's a liability issue with monies invested by you and the Hepners buying this property and whatnot, having the burden of additional costs put on them. And if the recommendations don't work, who has the liability insurance that's going to fix that error, And so that's where all of my concerns come in. I mean, I can guarantee you, and I think you'll agree after meeting Bob, he wants to work with you guys because he doesn't want the Hepners to have a lake. And I can guarantee you, having worked with the Hepners for almost a year now designing their home, they are the kind of people that will want to work with the community to get it resolved as well. And my statements have nothing to do with me having an investment in it as much as I just want to make sure that the investment you made is backed by liability insurance, and that the design recommendations that are being given are also backed by it, because this, you're creating a financial burden, obviously.
Sure. Well, I guess, feel free to ask Mike what his insurance is. We were mostly discussing it with him at the time. And, we appreciate we're going to want to work with Bob. And I think that our key recommendation is that we do focus on it. Not that we want to, force any particular issue, Jeff. So,
sure.
And it's also for you. As a designer, I don't think you want the lake backing up there either any more than Bob does. So
no, absolutely. But that's why we hire civil engineer that designed what we have.
Right. Because what I think you've addressed possibly, and I'm not the engineer on this, the 400 square foot retention for the additional runoff from the house may well contain that. We're more concerned with the water that's already coming through from the north, which increases every year.
Right.
Hope, again, the suggestion is you guys work with everybody. I think maybe Manu from number 8 would like to jump on and talk here in a minute. But he and Joanna Schutte, number 6, are directly involved because they're the ones that live in the lake. So if they don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I can yield to Manu and then possibly Joanna Schutte directly after that. Would that be fair?
That'd be great.
There was one before you were going to comment regarding the Commissioner Spiegelglass question on the brick, because
right.
I'd
like to make a comment there, and I think you all have it in our packet. When number 5 was constructed, the original plans included at least one side of siding where the other 3 sides were brick, and we petitioned the commission to consider, and they agreed to make the design brick all around. We feel we have a different look and feel to Lower Arbor, and would hope to maintain that consistency, but that is a design commission decision on the north and south facing elements. We're respectful of the economic issues that Jeff and Bob are trying to solve, but looking further up Arbor Road, those of us that drive up from the south see 4 stories of siding in some of the houses and 3 sides of brick from the front. And from a look and feel standpoint, it's our viewpoint, which the commission has the right to agree or disagree with, that we would love to see that consistent brick look all around.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Carol, go ahead.
So it appears to me that from the drawings, that what's presented to us is all brick as the front facade. Am I misreading that or misinterpreting that?
Karen. So the front elevation would be in front of your monitor right here, where a majority, probably 75% is all brick. On the rear elevation, there's brick along there, probably drops below 50%, but well over 25%. Then here are your sides. This is the side if you were driving south towards Ladue, where the lower level has brick, and then there is hardy board here and along this elevation here, and then this is roof area. And then the south elevation, so this is if you were driving northward to Old Bonham. This is the garage area that would be seen, and there's only brick along about a little higher than a knee wall height of brick along the garage elevations, but the elevation is broken with this roof line here.
So my question still stands. I'm not sure what Mr. Trotter's saying he doesn't like about the brick that's proposed. Are you saying there's not quite enough?
Yeah, he wants brick
So-
on all four sides. I
So
believe.
I just
Three
want to be
sides.
a little clear.
On three sides, we would prefer that on the north and south face to eliminate the siding and have brick consistent with the front view.
So your preference would be that it would be almost 100% brick on all sides?
Not all sides, on north, south, and east.
Okay.
So in effect, the visible portions of the house. Looking backwards, if the folks from Ramsgate want to comment, up to them. But these are the things, this view you're looking at here, number 6 looks directly at. And on the north, this is what appears to be the south side, but regardless, this is the north side. This is what number 8 looks at. And then the other flip side that Carlos showed you a moment ago is what number 6 looks at.
That's an awful lot of brick.
Mhm. And again, it's the commission's job to decide, and but that was our request.
Thank you. Okay, Carlos.
Any other questions, or do you want me to yield to any of our other residents?
Trying to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to bring on some other people.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I know Zoom technology is tougher than an in-person meeting. Thank you for working through this.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Trotter. Chairman, I'm gonna bring all right, Mano Mafodi. Let me know on the correct pronunciation. I apologize if I did mess that up. If you can state your name and address, and if you have the opportunity, if you have video access, it'd be great to have that on.
Hi, Mr. Trejos, and there you go. Okay. Thank you the commission, and thank you, Mr. Trejos, for giving us so graciously of your time. So I'm sorry, do you hear me?
We
Yes,
can
sir.
hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We are number 8 Arbor Road, so the property immediately to the north of the proposed project, number 7 Arbor. And just to give the commission a little background, we moved to the property in 2015. So we've been here a little over 5 years. And I can tell you that the stormwater issue has gotten worse every year since we've been here. And I believe we have provided Mr. Trejo's video and photograph evidence of the laking that takes place. It's not just ponding, it's laking. So I think Mr. Trejo earlier showed a Google map showing the front part of our property. Whereas in the first couple of years that we moved in, the culvert would overflow. Now our driveway overflows. And it's just, and then it of course occurs in front of number 7, and then also in front of Joanna's, who is in number 6. So this is, so yeah, so our home is right above that driveway, that culvert in the middle. So when it rains, our driveway that goes between the culvert is not visible. It's just filled with water, all the and moving towards 7 and then ultimately to 6. So the problem has gotten worse. And I wanna reiterate something that Frank said, which is none of this we are here to put on number 7 Arbor. The project being proposed by number 7, we see more as an opportunity for the community to get together to try to resolve this problem. Yeah, so we don't want to impose problems that predate Bob Berkeley's project on Bob Berkeley and the Hepners and so on. So I want to make sure we all understand that. It's just an opportunity. There was a question about the qualifications of Mr. Gartenberg. He is a civil engineer, I can tell you that. And he is also an architect. So his report does have some credibility, and so do its recommendations. Now, might the community be better off or also have the input of a wider study, a deeper study? Absolutely. But as Frank pointed out, we are tapped out. And as civilians, we don't think that's really within our jurisdiction. But Mike's report does have some insight and does point the way to understanding the problem and working on resolving it. And as Mr. Trejos pointed out, the solution is multifaceted. So we need to be aware of that. What I would like to ask the commission to consider is to bring in MSD, not necessarily to review number 7 in isolation, but to maybe help us with a detailed look at the integrity of the culverts, the integrity of the pipes. There were questions by the commission about the size of the pipes. So we need professionals to come in and look at this. And now that this number 7 project is being proposed, this is a great opportunity to get MSD involved and try to figure out how to mitigate, if not resolve, this issue. So those are my comments. I know Joanna, number 6 Arbor, probably wants to chime in, but I'm happy to field any questions if the commission has any. Otherwise, I will yield to Joanna.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rafidi. I have one more hand. Chairman, that's Mrs. Joanna Tiseski.
Very good.
Tischetti. All right, Ms. Tischetti, I have you promoted to a panelist. If you can state your name and address, it would be greatly, and if you have video capability, it'd be greatly appreciated to have it on.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just don't see where I turn my video on. Oh, I see it. I see it. Okay. There we are. I'm Joanna Schutte and I live at number 6 Arbor Road. I echo what both Mr. Trotter and Manu said. You know, by no means do we think this is number 7's sole responsibility to fix this. I've lived here since, I think I bought the house in 2017 and moved in around in 2018. So I don't have a huge history of the flooding, but I do feel that it's gotten worse. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the homeowner at number 7 wasn't really able to maintain that culvert very well. I mean, I clean out a lot of debris a lot that's backed up. So I think part of it is just maintenance and improvement of that. I mean, not that I'm a civil engineer, but my issue is that from the culvert at number 7's driveway, it then goes underground, and I apparently have a pipe that could run under my driveway that I, you know, didn't put in. I don't know much about it. And so my issue would be is whatever happens upstream or doesn't happen is going to probably impact me. And so I'm just looking for, you know, again, in collaboration, just to, the size of the lake that is on actually number 7 is pretty significant when it fills up. Obviously, I don't think the new homeowner is going to want that. Your driveway gets affected. Yeah, my driveway is just a raging river. So, and the debris, the debris is another thing that comes down, and I don't know where it comes from, but very large tree limbs and trunks and just a lot of debris ends up in the drain. There's a grate, and that gets all covered up with the debris, and then that just backs everything up. So it's finding some way to fit, you know, to address that would be good.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Can I speak?
Yeah,
Bear
go
with
ahead.
me 1 second though here. Just let me make sure if there's anybody else in there. I am not showing any other hands. Chairman, I think that's everybody on.
I think everyone's getting tired.
Yeah. So I'll go back to the petitioner. Go ahead.
Including me. I actually have a 1-hour drive tonight that I wish I could have left about 2 hours ago for. But so a couple of things. I think it is well established based on the first neighbor that spoke that my client wants to work with them, and he's shown them that he does. I don't think that's in question. How it gets resolved is what needs to be figured out. So I am fine hearing what all the neighbors are saying, but I think we've established that Bob Berkeley definitely has already made strides to work with them. And so this is, you know, what I have done is designed a home, and we hired a civil engineer to design what needed to be done based on city guidelines. And that's really all we are required to do. Gravity takes water where gravity takes water all the time. So, you know, just understand, he wants to take part in this and help resolve the water. I know Bob's not going to want a phone call from his clients saying that they have a lake in their backyard. So that said, the other thing is, just as a side note, I went to the Missouri licensee lookup, and Gartenberg is not listed as a civil engineer. So I think it's in your best interest to confirm that he's not a civil engineer. And I'm not knocking Mike. I've known Mike a while, but I don't believe he's a civil engineer to my knowledge, and to the licensee lookup online at the Missouri State's website. And I think it requires a bigger study. I think it requires a hydrology report, which is going to require more topographical data. But I think this project being held up by the rest of the neighborhood's long-term water issues is a little bit unjustified. I think that they need to all come together collectively, pull MSD into the conversation, pull the city of Olivet into the conversation, and resolve it holistically. And I keep hearing everyone say we're not expecting it to be resolved on this particular lot. However, it keeps being said over and over, these water problems are being picked up. So something's not aligning inside of all of that for me, because we've designed what needed to be designed. So if there's a conversation about the exterior that we need to have, I'm absolutely on board with that. But I think based on all of your documentation with emails, and conversations, site meetings with Bob Berkeley, as well as the email he sent to Carlos and me earlier today, with all of your concerns that he put answers to, and I know Carlos, you received that email as well. I don't think there's a question. Berkeley wants to work with you guys on this.
Jeff, I appreciate that. I think we're kind of spinning around in circles right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I do think that my big concern with this, it would be the size of the culvert, and I'm not ready to approve that size of the culvert.
Yeah.
But due to the potential change downstream of what that would be right at this point. I would like to see if we could engage MSD. I'm just not expecting them to get involved very fast on this, but I still would like to, have some time to kind of look over the reports that were presented, and then also look at what's the impact, to the change of the culverts, what's that's going to do downstream of it. Because it will catch up, at some property, and like to know what that is. That being said, with the design issues, is there any issues right now that we still have any questions on or need further discussion? I personally appreciate kind of some of the comments that the trustees have for that neighborhood, but I do think the requirements that they're talking about go well beyond what we as a community would impose,
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I think there's no question that development on Arbor Road is bringing this more to a head, shall we speak, and bring it to the whole neighborhood's attention, and
Right.
it has warranted a lot of discussion. I think they do need a bigger solution.
Agreed.
It's good to hear that they're not saying that they expect number 7 improvements to deal with that and be able to resolve that. May I suggest that they get together and perhaps with Bob Berkeley and talk about how to proceed to look at a larger area solution. Maybe Carlos could be a part of that discussion. I don't think it's anything more that the commission itself could do other than look at the improvement, the reports that are given to us regarding
Right.
the improvements on this lot,
Right.
number 7. And that's really what we need to deal with today.
Right. But I would definitely don't want to make any actions on this tonight. I know it's been a late night and I appreciate everybody's time and everything, but I do think that there's potential issues that we need to kind of look a little closer at. But as far as right now, I'm kind of down to this drainage issue in particular, the change in the size of the culvert. I think the stormwater detentions that they're proposing and doing everything like that looks great and has any issues. So it's really just, and we might, if the next meeting, if we don't have a determination on the size of the culvert, we might have to say that that is something that's going to have to be, further decided amongst the community or amongst, the group. And I know we'd have to somehow figure that out before they start construction. But at least we can approve it after that. I don't know how everybody else on the commission feels, but I think that would be the best way going forward. Jeff, any comments on that?
Well, I'd like clarification. Are you saying you cannot approve the design of the home tonight? Because all of the things you guys are talking about right now are civil engineering questions. And I'd rather not sit in another 3-hour meeting to hear about civil engineering and then get to the house.
Right. I don't think we have any issues with the design of the house.
It helps in the process. I mean, it's up to the petitioner who he wants to be represented here. I mean, they could have had their civil. This is also a concept stormwater management plan review. It's not just an architectural review, nor has the city ever held that.
I fully understand that. I
It's
just
make it
didn't know
clear.
the conversation was going to be this big. I felt we designed what needed to be designed. I didn't know that it was going to be this long of a conversation about things I just learned about today. That's all.
Well, my understanding and what we've heard is there's been knowledge about these issues. So
Just not to me. Correct.
Correct. And it's your client that decided to have you here. That I can't control, but what I can control
Totally understand it.
is that, this needs to be taken a look at. It is part of our process.
Sure.
This hasn't changed.
I get it. And we can have the civil.
But to help expedite it, my goal here is to get some consensus or some comfort from the commission that if the architectural aspects of it are okay, and I can't tie the commission to a final decision, but that just helps so we can really focus on where we need to focus. And maybe next time we do have the engineer, not the architect.
I would agree with that.
So would I.
Okay, good. All right, Jeff, appreciate your time and appreciate your guiding us through this. So,
And Chairman, I know it's on the time, but Mr. Mofidi wanted to add a hand raised, and I don't know if you want to.
as long as you can keep it quick.
Mr. Mofidi, you've been transferred over to the panelist.
Thank you, Mr. Trails. Thank you, the commission. I'll be brief, I promise. So, and I think I'm hearing what I think I am hearing, but I would like to confirm, which is this: we know that we don't want to just put band-aids on this issue, but if other players aren't engaged, namely, as Mr. Day pointed out, the city and MSD, then as homeowners, will be forced into implementing band-aids. And so I just want the commission to be aware of that we need the stakeholders, all the stakeholders here to be involved. That's all.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay. I propose that we defer this until the next meeting so we can get some further understanding. And Carlos, maybe if you can contact MSD, see if they can get involved, that would be great. And Mr. Day, if you could make sure that the civil engineer is a part of this, that'd be fantastic.
We will indeed.
Good. Okay, thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to other business.
Chairman, just quickly, we don't have any meeting minutes for review.
Move on to reports.
In terms of reports, I'll just quick, the most important thing is really the second meeting for September falls under Jewish Observance Day. We'd like to move that meeting to the following week. We'd like to have 2 meetings for September. And if the commission would consider the 23rd.
The only question I have was the Board of Appeals meeting. What was that finally decided on?
That would be on the 9th. So we'll have
Okay.
a commission meeting on September 2nd, Board of Adjustment on the 9th. And then I'm asking if the commission would meet on the 23rd and move the 16th.
I'm okay with that. How's everybody else?
That'd be okay.
I'll be traveling that week. I don't know if I can take it via Zoom or if I'll be flying that afternoon, but I can let you know when I get everything finalized.
I will be traveling that day too as well.
Okay.
All right, we'll look at that and see if you guys can check your travel arrangements. Just that would be fantastic. Just to verify, because we might not have quorum then.
Well, I'm gonna follow up with Mr. Cole.
Good, good.
All right.
Okay. Anything else? We're gonna have a quick report.
That was it.
That was it. Good, good. Missy?
A real quick one too, and I'm just gonna say September 10th, we have Party in the Park, Pedro, whatever band that was supposed to be at the 90th anniversary that we didn't have will be the performing artist for this event. And at the end of September, I think September 30th, we're gonna have a national night out, and we'll just see what the environment and things are in our air, and hope that things continue to be happening. Beyond that, I want you all to have a good weekend, stay safe, and God bless you for what you do.
Very good. Okay, that being said, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 10:21. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman.